Alright, let's get this started. These are my developer notes for my MegaManMaker level called Walk on Fire. This is something I made for my solo game dev class, and I'm gonna pause it real quick. But I made this for my solo game dev class. I just want to basically test out my level design skills and go around the philosophy of taking kind of like Mega Man and also Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze mostly, where you take a concept, build on it a little bit, then you take another concept, build on it, and then you merge the two together and progress that way throughout the remainder of the level. It basically split that into thirds for the level, and that's my process. I'll show you specifically what I'm talking about, but that's a general mentality that I'm going for. I did this in MegaManMaker, which is an online peripheral that's very similar to like Mario Maker, with like similar type of features like a tile sets and obviously like enemies and whatnot. And yeah, that's basically what I used. Starting out, obviously I'm just kind of showing off the controls. Actually, that is another thing I'll go into and I'll show off. In MegaManMaker, at the beginning when you start in the level, it shows you slide enable, charge enable. That's just because those are like assets that Mega Man has used since like not in the first game, but like in later games. And I use the slide in the level, not the charge. But the point is, Mega Man Maker is telling you that you have these abilities from the get go, and if you use Mega Man Maker, you have to set the controls so you know what every button does. Obviously, the level will organically kind of have you try to figure out most of these, except for the charge, which you don't need it. So you technically it's just a matter of whether or not you figure out for yourself. But everything else, like the slide and obviously jumping, shooting, whatnot, switching weapons, you would figure out organically just by testing out the controller and the buttons. I just want to get that out of the way, just in case I'm not talking about the controls and it doesn't make all that sense. But yeah, we start here. I'm just kind of messing around, and I start with obviously an open area, not much there, so you don't just get bamboozled at the start. That's just straight up bad level design if you are getting shot at the start. You walk up and you see basically an obstacle down here that it's going in and out, right? So it's not always on, but okay, it's fluctuating for a reason. Probably because it'll damage me. Obviously, it doesn't take that much brain power to figure out that you shouldn't touch this. But then you also see this little thing here that you may think it's a tile, but most people you'll probably think like maybe it's like also like an enemy, right? And but it's not doing anything. And I'm showing off as a Mega Man player, like, oh, I'll just shoot it and nothing's happening. So maybe you walk closer, see if you can jump over it. Then it starts shooting at you, so you have to start dodging. And eventually, while you're shooting at it and shooting at you, you'll either A, just accidentally kill it while it's doing that, or B, you realize the head was up while you're shooting it, right? And then you realize the head is up, and basically that's an opening for you to actually kill it. Yeah, there's little black eyes, an indicator like, oh, it's not protected by the helmet anymore, right? So you can shoot it. I'm not gonna harp on the enemies too much, just because I didn't design them; they're just Mega Man enemies. But I do want to instigate like my design mentality of how I place them and how the player figured them out, assuming this is their first Mega Man level, which I did do playtesting for people that haven't played Mega Man before. But I show off here basically the player walks in, they see the first like fire pillar, and they obviously jump over it. They don't want to touch it, but also you jump into this little blue item, right? And you change colors. So at first, that happens to the player. I'm assuming they'll think something of it, not just nothing. Jump around, maybe see nothing happens. Maybe and then hopefully they'll see like what the bar appear and let's try shooting. But even if they don't try that at first, they say they do that and they just want to continue onwards. They can't. They cannot make this jump even if they tried. I kind of show that. I don't get hit, but I show they can't make the jump. So then they start shooting, just testing out, and they see they have a different shot. And the fires are on both sides, so it's pretty hard. I jumped first, but it's pretty hard for the player to miss the fire if you're testing out shooting this new weapon, right? And when you shoot it right away, you'll obviously see that it freezes and you can stand on it. That's pretty simple experimentation that I think was pretty organic. And this is an enemy that you see. Oh, I didn't realize I got a notification in the past. But obviously, that's that pickaxe enemy. You basically see him far enough to know, okay, he has a shield off. Similar mentality to the Matools. And he'll start throwing pickaxes at you, so obviously you want to avoid him. And you basically just kill him as fast as you can. But I also give you a weapon that's very good for these enemies. And as the player experiments, they'll find that they can just freeze the enemy and then just wail in shots and have basically no penalty to it. I wanted to put some enemies here and there are pretty good for the weapons you have, particularly those, and then later another enemy you're gonna see later on. But these are just ones that drop fire from the sky to stick with like the level aesthetic and also have an aerial platforming challenge for like sections like this. For that section, basically, you couldn't make the jump. Without technically you can, but you really aren't supposed to be able to make that jump. Supposed to be a hard jump without freezing the fire, which is basically like, oh, I use this to be able to get up there pretty easily. And then that's the first checkpoint. From here now, I introduced the next main as element of the level, which is the magma falls. You cannot touch these. I mean, you can see like they're very like threatening looking, like vibrating, like orange and red colors. And I show you there, just so you know, I'm like full health practically. I touch it and I die. So basically, show like these things are gonna instant kill you, and I place them in the level knowing that, right? I place checkpoints and these magma falls throughout the level, knowing that they're instant kill. But you really don't want to touch them. And I also put the checkpoint close to when you first see them, so in case you accidentally do touch them, you don't have to push back that far. Now for this section, I do two things here. I wanted to have a section where you're dealing with a magma fall vertically, and you have to basically traverse it at different elevations, and also introduce this enemy. I wanted to do is show how it works basically while you're below it and out of enemy range, because in playtesting in particular, I saw a lot of players encounter this enemy and they're like, "Whoa, whoa!" Unlike the pickaxe guy, where it's because he's open for a bit longer, right? Like he'll throw a pickaxe and his shield's down versus this guy where he'll constantly push shield back up, and he's just hard. It just takes longer for to kill him usually. So I wanted to introduce him in this manner, and this is also kind of a restroom where like practically until you get up to him, or if you're in this magma fire area right here, you're not in danger. So I wanted to be able to take their bearings and just to look at the room if they wanted, right? But and this is and also this is originally where I was gonna introduce the slide, but either that happens earlier now. But the point is the player will conducively learn to do the slide. It will by necessity, like okay, I can't fit here, I have to try something. They already know the controls for it as well, but either way, they'll try something and down and jump, or the slide button will eventually let them slide under. And then for this enemy, finally you are able to fight him, and you're at. This is the first time you're fighting him, so I put him at a convenient angle where you could just jump and shoot and then fall, so he doesn't shoot you. You'll see how I play that out. Obviously, I still get hit, but the point is you could relatively safely take him on, and I show off the charge shot as well, which you don't need ever in the level, but it obviously helps. And then this is you just continue the magma falls, and I'm eventually going to introduce the second weapon you get to deal with them. But first, some aerial enemies, just to kind of keep you at bay and not just be jumping around. Something to worry about. Not that big of a threat though. Now, my mentality of this section is you get this weapon similar to Ice Slasher. Oh, it's a new weapon because you already know that your color change means you shoot something different, and you're facing forward. So I have it. So the first thing you'll do is shoot into this white gap, which you can't jump across, and the magma falls traveling that direction. So 50-50 shot, you'll hit the magma fall, and you'll see it changes color right away, and after the player sees it changes color, they know it's instant kill at this point. And if they don't, they know they're not supposed to touch it. The idea is they're like, oh, maybe I can walk on it now because they can't make the jump. So even if they try making it, they'll fail and just land on it and just be able to continue on after they walk on it, or they die and realize they have to do something about it, and hopefully they figure out that the color change means it's be able to walk on it now. Yeah, I just want to test out like what it does if it doesn't hit the magma fall. It just hits a block, which also may indicate like, okay, maybe this is something I can use for platforming since it makes a block I can stand on when it doesn't hit the magma fall. And then this section is just another enemy to worry about. I did a dumb. I basically just slid in there. That's completely my fault. But I'll fast forward a little bit. Okay, I'm back here. And basically, I have that enemy you just want to avoid, and then I have them a tool in an area where it's pretty simple to kill them. You can avoid them, not even worry about it at all. And I'm just showing off like a player first time doing it, freezing it. If they don't do the timing correctly, they'll freeze it, and it'll be vertical, and you can't do anything about it. You can't get past. So, do what you have to do. And if you try making the jump, you'll either won't make it or you get by the magma fall and die. So what you have to do is time it, like I did, have it shoot up just enough so you can stand on it while also, give you some leverage and not be covering your way. And you time it, and you have the platform basically. And this is a similar section where you have the vertical magma fall that you have to time again, but now you have the Sniper Joe, which I introduced earlier, that you have to deal with. But it's basically the same concept. I'm also reintroducing the fire pillars that you have to slide under. You basically free them and then you'll slide under them because you don't really have a choice. You can't just walk past as shown there, so you have to slide under them. And I think organically the player would want to freeze them at their peak height. In this section, if you try jumping across without freezing them, you'll die. Because They don't stay down long enough for you to be able to jump across without getting touched. And this jump from here to here, I haven't tested out that much, but you really aren't supposed to be able to make it. Maybe you can make it if you like get at the last second, but I have the fire pillars there. You already know how to freeze them, so the player, will already think, oh, I'll freeze them and I'll just jump across. And this next section expands on that right away. With you're gonna jump across the fire pillars the same way, but now you have the magma fall underneath them, and so you have to worry about freezing both or at least avoiding it right now, right? But you already know I have to freeze the fire pillars. I can't get across, and now you have the magma fall, which you have to freeze right away. And the idea is that you walk across. I jumped across there just because I froze it a bit short. The player, I imagine, is just gonna fall into the pit. So either they'll jump across or they'll try freezing it. But I put it at a higher elevation just in case the player didn't quite put it at the right distance, so they have some leeway for just jumping across or just walking past, right? But this next room, just a vertical magma fall, and this is the last checkpoint before the checkpoint that leads to the boss. This is like my final gauntlet. This is the first time I'm introducing these enemies, but it's pretty simple. They just have the little, not ellipsis, but the little sine graph arc that you want to avoid, and if you shoot them, they blow up, and you don't want to be caught in that explosion, and hopefully the animation kind of indicates that you want to touch it, or you just find out by trial and error. But this whole vertical magma fall section is basically like, okay, be very wary of what's going on because these are instant kills, so you don't want to be reckless and just accidentally touch them, right? These are obstacles that you want to be careful of. And I also introduced the fire pillars to basically have both angles something to worry about. And for this last section, you could make this jump with the magma fall and the fire pillars and jumping up there, but it's so perilous, it's really not worth it. It's much better to have the player use their weapons like I have been having them do throughout the level, freeze the fire. That way they only have to worry about the magma falls. They can just time their jumps and jump across, and it's pretty simple. And then for the next section, it's a vertical section that combines the two elements instead of a horizontal one. This you'll be able to walk across that. You've been using those to get up higher like you have been. Some enemies to spruce things up and something to avoid other than the timed obstacles. That was me dying like a dum dum because I thought I could make it. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. A bit too much, sadly. But yeah. So I'm gonna try time this jump again. I'll make it. I'll freeze the fire, and then I'll be able to basically get to that safety ledge, which the player is supposed to like aim for. They don't technically have to. They could just freeze the magma as it comes towards them. But if they want some time to breathe, they can jump to that and then freeze the magma whenever they're ready. And that was just a bit weird just because of the collision, but it worked out. I basically froze it right when the enemy hit me while I was in the hit animation. Now this room, it's supposed to look intimidating to the player, right? Because you see, oh, there's two magma falls going up and one coming from the top. So they're surrounded, and they have the fire pillars over there. But the main thing I want them to focus on is the magma falls, which is like, they don't want to touch these at all, right? They could try freezing the magma falls, but I put the platforms in a way where they really the timing for that would be very precise, and it would be a very specific jump that they wouldn't really want. I don't think the player would be emphasized to do it as much, right? Which is why I put the fire pillars there, because they're the one thing that stick out obstacle wise, and they've been already taught to use the fire pillars to get higher ground to stand on something. So I want them to use the fire pillars to freeze them and then be able to stand on them. And obviously that's what I'm gonna do. And once I get the timing right, I'll freeze them and then I'll try jumping up there. Admittedly, I may die in this section, and then I'll just skip forward if I do. But yeah, I'm basically just spamming the shoot button to keep them frozen, jump, and then that is pretty tight for timing. It is pretty tight where you want to freeze it like, pretty much right when you get there with concrete. But it is also just a matter of when you decide to make the jump from the fire pillars, and also you know it's coming because you're in a situation where you're just seeing all of them go, so you are really somewhat prepared to go for it. But then once you're up here, it's relatively easier. You just freeze the fire, and then the last magma fall, just time it so it doesn't hit you, and then you can walk across into the boss room. The boss room, I didn't design the boss. It's a pre-existing Mega Man boss called Concrete Man. But he's weak to the ice slasher, and then every player can experiment with that. The only really clue is that about that being their weakness is that you have two weapons, and the concrete shot is what he uses, so it'd be kind of weird if that was his weakness. So you'd experiment with the ice slasher. Plus, it's a horizontal projectile that works pretty well. I'm just kind of messing around because I knew I was gonna die given the health I was at, but I will use the ice slasher next round when I kill him. But yeah, it's a horizontal projectile. That's good for him. It's something that'll hit him pretty easily, and hopefully the player will test it out and figure it out for themselves, or they just use charge shots, whichever they prefer. And I'm just kind of like experimenting with the player mentality of testing weapons. And obviously, once you see the ice slasher does more damage, you're just gonna stick with that. It's super easy to hit him with, and yeah, it makes the boss not that bad in my opinion. He's a good challenge though. But that's pretty much the level. I those were all my mentalities going into it. You kind of see what I was talking about at the beginning, where the fire pillars were the first element, magma falls were the second, and then the last third, kind of 2/5 of the level, is when I kind of combine both. And then obviously the boss is it's not. I mean, it's normal Mega Man boss, so it's not like supremely tight to the gimmick. It's not like using concrete and ice at the same time. I was originally gonna have an ice boss as well that you can fight. Like if you either you can fight this guy or another boss called Freeze Man. But the maker actually does not let me use multiple boss rooms. Only one of them can be used as of right now, I believe. So I just stuck with the one boss because I think this boss was more fitting for the level anyway. And yeah, I that's pretty much the gist of it. I hope this was a conducive and relatively sophisticated talk. I understand if it seems I came across as unprofessional, and I apologize for that. But hopefully, I conveyed all the messages and information I wanted to properly for anyone listening. Thank you for watching, listening, and I hope you're able to get something out of it.